Today on the show, I am joined by Manny Montanez of nerdy Christian clothing company Quiet Mountain Apparel. We're going to talk about his journey from church work to designing his own clothing lines and what it's like in the apparel industry.
I'm a nerd, and I'm pretty proud of it.
Nerds today have no idea how good they have it.
Let the nerds take over!
Rise and shine, nerds. Grab your coffee, wipe the sleep from your eyes, and turn up the volume as we help kick off your day with Love Thy Nerd's official morning show here on YouTube and LTN Radio. I'm Radio Matt. I'm the Director of Content and Resources for Love Thy Nerd.
And I'm Taitra, and I ate my twin in utero. I hate that you made me say that.
Thank you for making us your daily stop for the latest in nerdy news, now Monday through Friday.
Today we have a special episode for you.
This week, I sat down with Manny Montanez from Quiet Mountain Apparel, and we had a lot to talk about.
Without further ado, here is the interview.
All right, well, I am joined by Manny Montanez. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes,
Montanez, good morning, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good morning to you. It's awesome to be here. Thank you for having me.
We are so glad that you're here. So this is actually like the first interview of this nature that I think anybody at LTN has ever done. We interview a lot of people in the nerd sphere, usually like game developers and sometimes like musicians or cosplayers, things of that nature. This is the first time, I believe, that we are talking to somebody who is in the apparel business of the Christian nerd space. And I'm very excited about that. But before we dive into what that's all about, I want to know a little bit more about you. If you could introduce yourself, like how tell us a little about yourself, you know, your faith, your family, all that kind of stuff. What do you love to do?
Okay. Well, I am originally from Los Angeles. That's the company itself. It's based in Arcadia. I'm a church kid. I grew up in the church. I've been there pretty much all my life. I gave my life to the Lord when I was about 6 years old.
Ooh.
And believe it or not, I actually stuck with it. Like I took it seriously. I kind of trip out on that when I think back. You know, when you're a kid, you're just, okay, I'll say the prayer. I'll go to, Sunday school or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just, because your parents drag you to it. But at the time I was like, well, I actually was interested. Okay, wow, what's in the Bible? How do you pray and this and that?
Yeah, that's a bit of a unicorn situation. It's kind of a rarity that you have someone that young that just sticks with it. My wife is also one of those that got saved at 7 and then I've made my life decision at this point.
No, seriously, it's a trip to say the least. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in church. I did ministry for many years, involved in the worship team, and did a little missionary work in my 20s, and part of multimedia, youth leader for a bit, and just it was all my life pretty much has been working in church, just involved trying to help people, trying to do things like that. As far as family, I'm married. We've been married for almost 3 years. Come October,
awesome.
I actually met her in the church as well. It was funny, the first time we ever really talk, or kind of chatted, I tried to have small talk with her. It was over Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was, remember that in Scott Pilgrim when he tried to be cool with Ramona and with the whole Pac-Man anecdote. So I remember the first time we were kind of chatted, I remember telling her hey, so, before Dragon Ball Z came to the US, it was already in Mexico. And, it was dubbed in Spanish first. And then right away she's like, oh yeah, I know. Really? You know about this? And she's like, oh yeah, when I was in El Salvador, I used to watch it all the time. And Ryan was like, oh, she's kind of cool. And it just kind of went from there. And then, later on, we started talking, we started dating, and, then we got married. And it's been a fun adventure ever since.
That's fantastic, man. That's really, really cool. So let me let's dive into this, because this is a bit of a shorter show than most. So let's jump into the main question. How did you get started in apparel design?
It's pretty random. A really good friend of mine, he had started his own apparel, his own business a few years ago. And he was, selling online. And I remember he was over at my house one day and started telling me about, hey, I just started my business. And I was like, okay, what are you doing? Because he's a graphic designer. He taught me a lot of just basics on how to get started with Photoshop and understanding contrast and designs and all different things. And I got curious about it. So I started picking his brain, started asking him okay, so how did you get your business license? How did you, do this, that, and the other? And he started, breaking it down to me. And I started thinking, wow, that's kind of cool. Seems pretty doable. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I know a little Photoshop. I know how to make a fun design or two. I used to make flyers and stuff at my old church, so why not? So I remember I started praying about it, started, because I always wanted to start my own business. And, this is right when we had just gotten married, my wife and I, about a year into it. And I remember asking her, when I, took her out to dinner, and I kind of threw the idea, what do you think about, I'd like to start a business. She's like, oh, okay, well, what did you want to do? And I told her, well, I want to make a Christian apparel line. I want to, make designs for people to wear at church, or if they're going to evangelize, or just regular, day-to-day, if they're just, doing laundry or going shopping. And right away, she was, super supportive of it. She, was 100% on board. Okay, so what do you need to do? Because the thing is, my wife, she's a planner, which has been extremely helpful with the business itself, because she helps me to kind of figure out, okay, you need to get this, you need to get that, and so on and so forth. So right away, I started trying to figure, okay, what's the name of the company going to be? What kind of design should I do? And the thing is, with that, it kind of leads into a little bit of a backstory, as far as being able to design, being able to be creative, on account of, before then, I had stopped being a creative for about 2 years. It kind of goes back to my old church where I grew up. Like I said earlier, I was very heavily involved with ministry. Like I said, multimedia, with youth ministry, worship ministry for many years. But it got to a point where I experienced burnout, ministry burnout. And it's funny because I don't know about other churches or ministries, but at least where I came from at the time, it was very taboo, the word burnout. It's well, no, you can't get burnout. Just pray about it. Just fast, read the word, you'll be fine. And there's times where it's just it can be ministry. It can be very demanding, especially when you're. And the thing is, when I saying it was in 3 different ministries, it wasn't 3 different seasons.
Right.
It wasn't okay, during this part in my teenage years, I was in here, and here when I was in the college years, there was times where I was involved in all 3 at the same time.
Right.
And they would be at times very demanding at the same time. So as soon as I can honestly say, I would be playing worship, playing keyboard or what have you, and then as soon as we were done with worship and started going into announcements and stuff, then I'd run to the back. Okay, what graphics do we need for this or that? Okay, let me help. I was literally jumping from one to the other, and I got burned out. Because after a while, just going, you go through the motions. You're just okay, I'm doing it just because it needs to be done. But you start losing, that passion, that fire, that, oh man, I'm doing this for the Lord. I'm doing this, to help people. And you're yeah, I'm just doing it because it needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And that's not good. Yeah. And I remember, like I said, some people I would talk to about it, and they're well, no, you'll be okay. You're not burnout. We don't believe in burnout. And even, there's times you would go to conferences or men's conferences and stuff, and they would preach oh, burnout doesn't exist. You need to be on fire for God, and winning out the lost and this and that. And it's okay, I get that. I want to do that, but at the point where it's I just don't have the heart. I don't have it in me. That
is probably one of the most dangerous mindsets that it still exists. I think we're getting better about it as a church culture, recognizing the need for, protecting mental health and things of that nature. But that's still a problem. It's, even Jesus broke down, and prayed for God to take the cup from him if he could. I mean, those are taxing things, and those kind of emotions are real, and especially in church, it's just like you said. You don't get to quit a ministry when you start. Even if you start a new one, you're like, okay, but you're still gonna do that other one, right? Because 20% of the people do 80% of the work. That's just how it's been. Yeah.
There it is.
No, I completely understand that. Fallen victim to that myself, but that was more my fault than anybody else's. It wasn't a expectation. It was like, yeah, I can totally do all of this, no problem, forever.
Oh no! I mean, I totally get that. Yeah. And that was the thing. Was like, I remember the same thing. I was like, okay, I can do this. I can get this done. I'll be fine. But then I started kind of seeing like, okay, I'm relying more on myself. I'm relying more on my strength. Mm-hmm. And then instead of like, trusting in God to strength, at the same time, just trying to find a chance to take a break, or at least learning to say no. And I know that, when you get so busy, so on the go, it gets hard to just do basic Christian rhythms, practices as far as like prayer, reading the word, just trying to feed yourself so you can, you can feed others. Mm-hmm. Like I'll take all full accountability in that. But at the same time, it was just the ministry I was a part of. It was very event driven. It was very, on the go. So like literally every week there would be another event. So we need another image. We need another video. We need another, oh, hey, we need you to play keys at this thing. We need you to play keys at that thing. But at the same time, you're also going to need to run over here and, film this and film that. And it would just get so busy to the point I was like, I'm
draining yourself. Done. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just be like, I'm done.
So you took some time off, some time away from creating. And then the inspiration to start this apparel company started. Where'd the name Quiet Mountain Apparel come from?
Well, it's funny. Quiet Mountain, it comes from the idea of separating towards God, like finding that quiet time, that peace time, to be able to separate, to pray, to listen to God's guidance. Where does He want you to go in life and in ministry? You think. With Moses, like he was separated to Mount Sinai and God gave him the 10 Commandments. Where I'm at over here, we have things called Prayer Mountain. I don't know if you're familiar with that or have that over where you're at. Well, Prayer Mountains, they're kind of like Christian campsites where it's meant to go to separate, to pray. That's one of the things that I remember growing up. We would go on like Friday nights. We would spend the night and leave Saturday morning. And it was for like corporate prayer for like different members of the church to gather, and it was great because it was literally you can rent a small room that's enough to fit 1 or 2 people in it, and that's all you do. You just pray, you separate. They had bigger rooms, if you want to take like members from your church or a Bible study, things like that. So the idea with Quiet Mountain was just as a meaning to have intimacy with God, be able to separate and to listen to Him. And then at the same time, my wife kind of jokes that. I'm kind of her Quiet Mountain because I'm kind of a big person and I'm quiet by nature, so so the name kind of fits.
Well, that's good. That's actually quite beautiful, is how that connects to the idea of you having to take a forceful break to find, where God was taking you next. I love that. So running an apparel shop, before I got involved with LTN, I had another like little kind of goofy. It wasn't so much nerdy as it was comedy-driven kind of ministry. And we were really good about designing like stickers. We had good sticker designs. And then as we attempted to move into apparel ourselves, we're like, well, these sticker designs do not look good on shirts. And we tried so hard to make good-looking, funny Christian t-shirts. And I don't think we made a single one that I was ever happy with, and sold basically nothing before we were like, okay, forget this. So I got to know kind of what it's like. Like, what's the most stressful thing about running an apparel shop?
You know what? Actually, the designs, that does play a huge factor in it. Because when I first started A Quiet Mountain, I remember... Like I said, I took a break, and it was from being a creative. And I feel like the time like that was God closing the door during those 2 years. Like I couldn't create anything. I would try to do designs. I would try to write a script for a video or something, and it just wouldn't happen. when I started this business, that's when it's like God opened the door, and all of a sudden I was able to create designs. Now, when it originally started the shop, it wasn't so much nerdy Christian apparel; it was more general.
Okay.
Just more general Christian apparel. Just had like maybe like just simple text sayings, or I was still trying to figure, okay, what's going to be the designs, what's going to be like the identity of the brand. But when we started getting into like more of the nerdy attire, that's the difficulty I find. It's just that you're trying to find a balance between like, something that's Christ-centered and then something that's also nerdy, geeky, whatever a person's fandom is.
Right. In a way that looks not corny too. That's difficult to do.
Exactly.
And I'm going to throw up some of your designs here for people to see.
Awesome.
Like they're very, very, I mean, they passed that corny test really easily. Like I was very impressed with how good these were. And honestly, several of them made me mad because like, this is such a good idea. How did I not come up with this at some point?
It's difficult because you do want to try not to be corny. Because that's the thing. It's like starting to research this. I started saying, okay, like maybe I can get some ideas from like other like, nerdy Christian apparel brands. And that's the thing, is like, they don't really exist.
There's not a
like,
lot.
It's not a lot, a handful if that. Because I mean, you'll go and you can do a search like, okay, Christian nerdy T-shirts. Go on Google and type that in, and you'll find like other, graphic tee businesses that just happen to have. Oh, I have a couple of like funny Jesus T-shirts, funny church T-shirts.
Yeah.
But the rest is all like sports or whatever, what have you. But then when the ones I would find, I was like, yeah, they are kind of corny. They are kind of like.
Yeah, you might have come across a couple of mine. Yeah, they were pretty bad. So and
it's just trying not to fall into that.
Yeah, I think
it's not easy.
I think these are great, honestly.
Thank you.
What is the most rewarding thing about running a apparel business?
Seeing people wearing your products. I mean, honestly, you see people wearing your T-shirts, hoodies. And you'll see, we'll get tagged in photos every so often on Instagram, and you'll see them either they're at church or they're traveling, whether it's doing missionary work or at a conference or just day-to-day life, and they're wearing it. You're like, wow, somebody actually liked that design, and they're rocking it, and they're showing it off to their friends or what have you, and it does feel rewarding to see like, hey, I worked on this, I worked hard on this. I'm praying that God led me through this design, that it's actually going to be able to minister to somebody, or for them wearing it, that they're able to open up a opportunity to witness to somebody, because it's not a very common thing when you see two niches where it's Christian and nerdy. I believe that does kind of will capture somebody's eye and make them take a moment to look and like, hey, what's that about? Why is there a verse? Why is there something with a Gundam robot? That doesn't. You don't exactly see that every day. And it is rewarding just to see somebody wear it.
Yeah. That'd have to be it, wouldn't it? So one last question. What would be a good piece of advice for somebody who is a creative person, has a desire to get into this kind of realm of design? What would be something that you've learned in your process that you wish you knew at the beginning?
Well, I mean, if somebody was wanting to do designs that are, church-based, that are Christ-centered, get into a lot of prayer. Make sure to ask God for guidance. Like, okay, what kind of designs do you want me to do? Where do you want to lead? I would say go to YouTube. That's where I learned a lot of things as far as okay, how to put the designs together. Because I swear nowadays you can learn just about anything on YouTube. Mm-hmm. So you go on there to see, okay, how do I set up the website? Am I going to use a standalone like Shopify, or am I going to use Etsy or Redbubble, or what place do you want to sell it through? As well as learning, okay, what are the proper dimensions for the designs they're coloring, things like that, as well as learning marketing as well. Like, how do we get the advertisements? Do I do through Google? Do I do through Facebook? Things like that. I think if one is to go into designing like their own apparel, think about something that you would wear. I think it's always kind of like, what would you like? What would you wear? And then you go and through that design. And then after that, not everybody, but a few friends, if you have that, are, you can trust their opinion. They're not just going to tell you what you want to hear. Like, oh, that's great. When it ends up being, as we said earlier, corny. You show them the designs. You kind of help them, pick their brain. Like, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And just be open to creative criticism. Because that's going to really help. Because, we can have our own ideas. Like, oh, this is going to work. This is going to work. But if it doesn't, we shouldn't try to force it. We shouldn't try to push it. It just has to kind of happen naturally, organically. But yeah, start design. That's the main thing too. Start playing around with design. Start making kind of a bit of a portfolio. At least get 4 or 5 designs ready to go, and then from there, decide hey, do you want it on T-shirts? Do you want it on hoodies? What type of apparel, clothing do you want to rock it on?
Yeah, I think that industry, the self-publishing of T-shirts and stuff, has been growing fairly big in the last decade or so. Like you said, with Redbubble, we also have Cafe Press. I think was the first one that lets you do it in a small batch.
Oh, yeah.
Sticker Mule is even doing T-shirts where you can just do one at a time and test it out and see how it goes. But yeah, essentially, you're saying just don't try and do it all on your own. Get the guidance that you need, and also rope some people in to give you honest feedback. Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, that's about all the time that we've got, Manny, but can you tell the people how to find you and your store all over the place? Hit us with some links.
Oh yeah, you can, if you want to see what we have, you can go to quietmountainapparel.com. That's where everything's at. All the T-shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, tank tops. I actually just launched a new collection called Harvest Night. I don't know. Did you have that at your church? Or
fall festivals kind of thing?
Yeah. It's kind of like Christian Halloween, so to speak. So that's actually, and personally, it has a place in my heart on account of that's where my wife to be. That's when I knew that I liked her for sure, and I wanted to get to know her. Long story short, I was running the video game booth at our church's Harvest Night, and her and a couple of sisters from the church, they walked over. Her friends were playing the games, and while my wife and future wife was just kind of standing there watching, something inside said, "You better go talk to her, or you're going to regret it for the rest of your life." And I remember going over there, trying to work up my inner Zap Brannigan, to work up a little courage to say hello. And from there, I remember at the end of the night, I remember thinking, man, I like this girl. I really want to get to know her. And then I come to find out, sometime later that she felt the same way about me. So with this new collection, it's kind of a celebration of churches that have that, Halloween alternative. So you see different designs, just kind of, having fun with it. The fact, one of the designs, it says, how's it go? It's like Halloween, but without the monsters.
Mm. All right. Yeah, we'll throw some of those up here too for people to see.
Yeah. They can go there to quietmountainapparel.com, and as well as following us on socials at Quiet Mountain Apparel for both Instagram and Facebook.
That's fantastic, man. I dug the Futurama reference that you had there too. All right, Manny, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I hope to get to talk to you again in the future, but you've been fantastic, man. I'm so excited. And folks, go check out the clothes, the designs that he has made. They are fantastic. I guarantee you, if you're a Christian nerd, you're going to find something on there that you definitely want in your wardrobe. Manny, have a good morning, man.
You too. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you again to Manny for joining us on the show today.
And with that interview over, we're going to take a quick break.
When we get back, we'll share today in nerd history. Stick around. Hey everyone, I'm Radio Matt, and this is Reviews of the Nerds. Today, I'm reviewing the Nintendo Switch Online subscription service as it stands in 2023. For those who own a Switch but have never dived into the online service, it might be time. The cost of this service is only $20 a year for an individual or $35 for a family. For this, you will, of course, open up online play for games like Mario Kart 8, Splatoon 3, and more, but it also comes with a whole host of classic games for the NES, the Super Nintendo, and the Game Boy. All the classics, some rare gems, and even some games only released in Japan are available to play, with plenty of save slots and even the feature to pause and rewind the game to save yourself from early deaths or choose another path without having to restart the whole system. While it's definitely cheating, it has allowed me to beat games I've never been able to before, like Super Mario Bros. 3 or a few of those older Zelda games. This service also allows for some cloud data storage and a few online perks, but all of that for just $20 is well worth it. But there is another level you can open up, the expansion pack. Switch Online with the expansion pack is $50 a year for the individual or $80 for a family. It is quite a price hike, so it really comes down to what it offers. First of all, it brings a library of Game Boy Advance, Sega Genesis, and Nintendo 64 games to the mix. The selection of these games are smaller and not all have the same rewind function, but they are certainly big draws. The Nintendo 64 library has massive hits like Star Fox 64, GoldenEye 007, Banjo-Kazooie, Mario Kart 64, and most recently, 1080 Snowboarding. But perhaps a bigger draw is dependent on what games you already own. If you own Splatoon 2, Animal Crossing, or Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you will find massive expansions to those games here. Splatoon 2 adds an entirely new single-player adventure. Animal Crossing adds the Happy Home Paradise expansion, allowing you to help others build their homes and islands. And Mario Kart has been coming out with waves of updates, of which the final one is about to drop, effectively doubling the already huge list of tracks. Several redesigned classic tracks, real-world inspired tracks from Mario Kart Tour, and a few brand new ones as well. For me and my family, even if I don't get to play as much as I'd like, the Switch Online plus expansion service is well worth the cost for a year. But even if the expansion pack might be too steep for you, any Nintendo fan, especially the millennials among us, will find the basic Nintendo Switch Online service to be a steal at just $20 a year. Once again, I'm Radio Matt, and remember, nostalgia is a heck of a drug. Welcome back to Rise and Shine Nerds, LTN's official morning show here on YouTube and LTN Radio. To wrap up the show, it's time for Today in Nerd History.
Today in Nerd History.
Today's date is September 22nd.
In 1989, Family Matters premiered. This sitcom follows the lives and adventures of the Winslow family, an African-American middle-class family living in Chicago, and their nerdy neighbor, Steve Urkel, who often causes trouble with his inventions and antics. In 1994, Friends premiered. This sitcom follows the lives, loves, and laughs of 6 friends in their 20s and 30s who live in New York City. In 1997, Stone Cold Steve Austin interrupted Mr. McMahon, who was delivering a speech on WWF Monday Night Raw. This confrontation ended in Stone Cold delivering his signature move, the Stone Cold Stunner, to his boss, officially kicking off their legendary rivalry. In 2004, Lost premiered. This is a show about a group of plane crash survivors who struggle to survive and uncover the secrets of a mysterious island, while also dealing with their own pasts and destinies. In 2014, Gotham premiered. This series tells the story of how a young detective named Jim Gordon tries to fight crime and corruption in a city that is home to the future Batman and his enemies.
Find out more nerdy facts about today's entries at lovethynerd.com/nerdhistory.
We hope you have a fantastic weekend, and we thank you for making Rise and Shine Nerds a part of your day. Catch us every weekday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern on YouTube or 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. on LTN Radio.
You can also subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast. Oh my God.
Pasta app.
Podcast app.
Where you get your pasta at?
or through the Love Thy Nerd YouTube channel so you can catch up on any episodes you missed.
And tell us what you think of the show via our socials at Rise and Shine LTN on Facebook and Twitter. Once again, I'm Radio Matt.
I'm Deidre.
And as always, a reminder.
Jesus loves you, nerds.